and welcome back to my channel. This is Carrie from Caffeine and Lesson Plans. Today I've decided to start filming or making videos for my 2017-2018 homeschool curriculum. It's getting close. I mean, we've kind of just started the summer and here we are halfway through June, and I know that our homeschool, the kids and I, will be starting, I want to say it's the second week of August, second or third week, maybe it's the third week. Anyway, about halfway through August is when we're going to start our next year. And the reason we are starting a little bit earlier than we normally do is because we have a couple vacations coming up that I wanted to kind of plan some extra time into our schedule, just to give us the flexibility to do that. Also, you know, I like having a couple extra weeks built in just in case somebody gets sick or we just decide, you know, 1 week to have a long weekend, you know, what have you. Anyway, so I've pretty well, I believe, I've gotten all of our curriculum for next year, and so I figured I'd go ahead and start doing the video series for that. Obviously, I'm going to break it up into a couple videos because it would just be way too long if I tried to make it into one video. Plus, I like giving you guys a more kind of in-depth look other than just saying, this is what we're using and moving on. You know, because when I buy a curriculum, I don't ever buy anything unless I've seen the inside of it. You know, I want to see what the material looks like, because that's a really important thing for me. Some people, it doesn't necessarily matter what it looks like. I'm a very visual person, and so for me to stay motivated, I like something that's laid out well, easy to kind of to implement, also something fun. My kids are the same way, and so I figured that it would help some of you. If you've never seen some of the curriculum that I'm going to talk about, it would help some of you to see the inside of the materials. So the first thing that I'm starting with in our video series is our selection for English. Now, this is the subject that I have struggled with for the entire time we've done homeschooling, trying to find something that works. And now I know that there's not necessarily going to be something that works for all of my kids. You know, every child is different. But I really felt like a lot of the not the materials, but a lot of the curriculum I've been using would be really good on one point, like phonics. But then I was either having to get like separate spelling and handwriting and grammar materials, or they might have those materials and they weren't necessarily, they didn't feel as complete to me. I felt like there were things missing out of the curriculum that needed to be added. And for instance, we started last year. Last year was crazy because we moved in the middle of the school year. So we started last year with All About Reading Level 2. I love All About Reading. I have no qualms with that program. It just did not work for my son. We liked the pre-reading curriculum in Level 1, but once we got to Level 2, he was just fighting me, and it was a struggle, and just, I mean, we both dreaded doing that every day, and so I decided to do something a little bit different. So we moved to How to Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. Well, the problem there was he was, you know, with that material, if you've ever used it, they want you to start from the very beginning, even if your child is kind of ahead of what the beginning lessons were. So they were very easy in the beginning, and he didn't have a problem with it, but he was just kind of bored, and we would get through it in like 3 minutes, and I didn't feel like, I mean, I don't know. To me, I just didn't feel like the curriculum was really focusing enough on phonics and grammar, and that's really what I want my children to have a very solid foundation when it comes to phonics, because when they run into words later in life that they've never seen before, I want them to be able to use those tools that they've been taught to figure out how to pronounce that word, what that word is. And so that's the big thing. I wanted something that was heavy with phonics, but I also wanted to find something that, implemented spelling and handwriting. I didn't just want to do, okay, here's our reading curriculum, here's our spelling curriculum, here's handwriting curriculum, here's grammar. I didn't want them to be all separate. I just wanted one curriculum. I wanted English, and I wanted all of that to be integrated in a way where it didn't feel so separate from each other. I wanted it to flow naturally together, so that they didn't even necessarily realize that they were doing different subjects. It was just all part of that one subject that we were doing. And that's when I stumbled upon Logic of English. And I have never, ever, ever heard of this curriculum before. I'd never heard of it. And I basically had been just YouTubing different homeschool curriculums for English, and I stumbled upon this one, and I was just kind of blown away. I was like, this is what I've been looking for the entire time. Why have I not seen this before? And so I watched quite a few videos from people who had purchased it. I watched videos on kind of like their unboxing and the overall view of it. I've watched reviews after they've used the material, and I've also watched videos from the Logic of English YouTube channel. They have their own YouTube channel, and Denise Edie, who is the one who has created this curriculum, has done a fantastic job in giving master classes over this material, and those classes are on YouTube for you to watch before you even start teaching, because this can be implemented in a classroom as well as a homeschool room, and it's not set up necessarily for one or the other. It's very easily implemented in either setting. And so I wanted to give you a really good peek at the curriculum, because I feel like a lot of you have probably never heard of it, and if you have, you may not have ever seen it. It took me a long time too to also kind of figure out what levels I wanted, because I will tell you there's level for foundations. This is for elementary. We have foundations. You have levels A, B, C, and D. Okay, so you have 4 levels, and on their website they have a thing that will help you to choose what curriculum you want to start with your child. And I was kind of, my child was kind of borderline between A and B. And so I'm just gonna go ahead with him, because we'll probably get through it quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and start with A, which is the very beginning level. And we're going to work our way through B. And then if we get through B, I will order C and D. And so that's what we have chosen for or that's what I've chosen for my kids. So, like I said, I'll put the link to the website down there, and I will also put a link to their YouTube channel in the comment box or the description box, and so that you can check that stuff out. But their website is very thorough, very, very thorough. And if you're thinking about using this curriculum, I would definitely get on their website and check out everything they've got to explain the curriculum. I think they even have a link on their website to their YouTube channel. So they also have another program called Essentials. So there's Foundations and Essentials. And Essentials are for older kids. Once you've kind of mastered all of this stuff in Foundations, you move up to the Essentials. And the Essentials is set up a little bit differently. I won't go into that, but like I said, their website has a lot of really good information about the materials. So let's go ahead and get started, since I've yacked on for almost 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going to start out with level A, and I'll show you all that material, and then I'll show you the level B material. You can buy this separately. You can buy it piecemeal and put it together. They show you what you need for each level, or you can buy it in a set. A and B come in a set together, and C and D come in a set. A and B set, I believe, is 240 something for the A and the B and all the stuff I'll show you, and then I believe C and D is like 190. But if you try to piece it together, and do it separately, it's a whole lot more expensive. So that's just a little info for you there. So starting out with level A. So the first thing let me move some of this around so it's a little easier to see. Let's see, level A, level A. So the first things you are going to see are the teacher's manual and the student workbook. The teacher's manual is a hardback and the student workbook is a paperback. And when you first open it up, you have the scope and sequence. So it breaks it down by lesson. It talks about the phonemic awareness that they will learn in each lesson, what they're going to learn with handwriting and spelling. And so you can see in the beginning of, let me see if I can get that. I hope you can see that. In the beginning of lesson 8, because this is the very first, the beginning of this program, we don't do spelling. They don't do spelling until lesson 21. And after every 5 lessons, there's a review lesson. And so that's carried through, I know, to Foundations B. So you have 5 lessons and then a review lesson. 5 lessons and a review lesson. So in this text for lesson A, you have 40 lessons and 8 review lessons. So we've got 48 lessons. Now, it doesn't necessarily tell you to break it up per day or per week. That is up to you and your child. I suspect that my son will go through level A fairly quickly, and probably the beginning of Foundations B quickly. And then once we get into the newer, harder stuff, we may have to spread it out. And that's not to say that we will not also implement reading other like early reader books. The materials do come with some readers, but we will definitely still be working on using other readers throughout the week. So like I said, you've got the scope and sequence for each lesson. It shows here your supplies needed. This curriculum you can buy in either manuscript or cursive, and they will start out, they can start out in level A as cursive. I started my kids with manuscript, and we will probably not pick up cursive until 3rd grade. And so I just went ahead and chose the manuscript option for this, for this curriculum. Now, the teacher's manuals will show both manuscript and curriculum, they will show manuscript and cursive in the curriculum in both the teacher's manuals. So those aren't necessarily split up between manuscript or cursive. The workbooks, however, you have to choose one or the other. So if you found the teacher's manuals on like eBay or somewhere else used, you can pick them up and use them with either for manuscript or cursive. You would just have to buy the workbooks themselves brand new, which you can do on the website. Let's see, so it talks about reviewing the lesson, speech tips, there's different terms for some of the words. We have our phonograms here that they're going to be learning. And then they've broken down the materials needed for each lesson, which is really nice. And they show it in the beginning of each lesson too. So it's so very thorough and laid out, and there's very little you have to think about. Really, the best thing to do is just preview the lesson and have your materials ready, and it's not going to be something that you're going to have to take a lot of time to plan out before each week. So, for instance, it'll show lesson 1, shows the materials needed. You need the Logic of English whiteboard, tactile card. It's like a little, I can't remember what it is. One of the tactile cards, I can't remember what they call that. It's not necessarily a letter. It's just a stroke, because like I said, this is the beginning. So they start out just learning strokes for their handwriting, and then moving up to the lowercase letters, and then Foundations B will be uppercase letters. And then it shows optional resources. So for this one, there's a mirror and Dr. Seuss books. a table, and a statue with a base. And it does that for every single lesson and review. So you have the necessary materials and then the optional materials. Also, every single lesson in this program aligns with the Common Core standards. So if you're in a state that requires you to show how your materials line up or your curriculum lines up with standards, that's all laid out for you. You don't even have to think about it. And it's also nice to see where they are at. You know, I mean, you may not necessarily need to show proof that you're using materials that line up with the standards, but it's nice to be able to see that they are where they're at, you know, developmentally. And I planned, like I said, I bought this curriculum to start out with my son, who he's actually going to be starting 2nd grade next year, and he knows a lot of this, so we will breeze through a lot of Foundations A. But I'm also going to use this with my daughter too, who will be starting K5, and so we will start with this with her. I'll just buy her an extra workbook. And so once you get done with the standards, then it just, these standards are more, in this section of the Common Core standards, it shows the standard and it shows, it explains what the standard is. Here are just a list of the standards just referenced by number. And this is the first lesson. So this is what the lesson looks like. It says lesson 1 shows the objectives. So for handwriting, it says become familiar with lines on paper. Learn the swing stroke. So that's what I was trying to remember. It's called the swing stroke. Phonemic awareness. Develop a kinesthetic awareness of how sounds are formed. Learn that 2 words can be blended together to form a new word. Materials needed. The Logic of Education whiteboard, the tactile card with the swing stroke. So it will either be manuscript or cursive, whichever one you've picked. And then the optional materials listed. So here, starting out, here's the phonemic awareness part of the lesson. It tells you that, or it basically tells you what to say and tells you what they expect the child to say. So it says, discuss the following questions to help the student begin to think about words. And so you would say, what is a word? And it says answers will vary, obviously. And it talks about, you know, the questions that they want you to ask the kids. And then, like I said, what the kids will probably say. There's a teacher tip here. There's a little multi-sensory fun activity tip there. And it also shows, up here you have the materials needed and the optional materials. Here in this light blue box, they break it down per section of the lesson. So optional materials were mirror, Dr. Seuss book, table, and statue at the base. In the phonemic awareness part of the lesson, it says the optional materials are mirror, the mirror and Dr. Seuss books. And so here is, I'm going to try to lift it up a little bit so you can see that. So continues with question and answers to the child. It talks about, there's a little book list tip here, some more multisensory fun, more teacher tips. Down here we start in compound words, and so here you have an activity with compound words, and then you skip over to the handwriting part of the lesson. And so here they're learning the lines, so the swing stroke. It tells you here you can have, there's the optional handwriting chart, which I'll show you. Some more teacher tips, vocabulary that they're using within the lesson for you. There's a little game here for you to play with your child called Buzz the Teacher. Talks about the swing stroke, more teacher tips, more multisensory fun activities. And then here we are with handwriting practice and more teacher tips. And that is lesson 1. And so for a younger child, there's quite a bit there. Depending on where they are with their phonics and handwriting, this could go really quickly and just do it, you know, you could do it in one day, or it may take a little bit longer for you to implement. So it could be, you know, it could be a week-long thing, or you could do it, heck, you could do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then on Tuesday, Thursday, just find some readers to work on, or just work on some fun handwriting activities so that you're not just in the book all through the week. I'm trying to implement more activities to my lessons and to my curriculum in general, because my kids are very hands-on and squirmy, and so if I try to just keep them in the traditional schooling with textbook and workbooks and worksheets and all that stuff, they get really antsy and they just kind of zone out. So that's what the lessons look like in the book. Let's see, let me bring you to a lesson that has the spelling in it. Okay, so here we are, lesson 24. Same thing, you've got your objective materials, optional materials. Here's the phonemic awareness part of the lesson. Here's the handwriting part of the lesson. There's some phonogram practice and lots of teacher tips and things on the side, which is kind of why you want to go ahead and preview the lesson before you actually teach it, just so that if there's maybe something that you need to prepare, you know, for the multisensory fun, you'll know that ahead of time. Here are the spelling words. So it gives the word, gives a sentence to use in the word, and it shows you how to say the word so that you're saying it phonetically correct. I know that depending on where you live in the United States, we all have different accents and dialects and things like that. So we want to make sure that we are pronouncing the words phonetically correct so that they can hear it and spell it correctly. And then it shows you how phonetically, or how it's, say it phonetically, how it's actually, you know, spelled. And then here's some spelling hints to give. Let's see. Down here we have more spelling work. There's some vocabulary. There's a little game called Salt Box Race. And then there's some reading work to do. So reading new beginning words, and then you would move on to lesson 25. And so, like I said, it just goes all the way up to lesson 40. But like I said, there are 8 reviews in here, so there's technically 48 lessons. So, and that's how that ends. And then there's an index in the back. And the student workbook is a lot of fun too. It's not just black and white. And the neat thing about the workbook is that the pages aren't filled with a bunch of instructions and additional things. It's very just like, this is the lesson. So you obviously need the teacher workbook to tell you what you're doing in this lesson, but it's very straight and to the point. And so lesson 1, these are compound words. This is an activity. Here, if you don't have the the logic of English whiteboard, they have, let me see if I can show you, optional space for handwriting, which is here, and then there's some more handwriting practice for lesson 1, and then you move on to lesson 2, and it's kind of the same idea where you're doing an activity with phonics, you're doing an activity with handwriting, sometimes it's a game. Here's a phonogram tic-tac-toe, there's matching, there's all sorts of stuff. And then once you get up into spelling, there's even more. So here you have, this is lesson 27, you have handwriting practice, phonogram bingo. Here's another phonogram bingo, continued reading different phrases. And then here we have lesson 28. And some of the lessons, like this is lesson 28 and this is lesson 29. So some of the lessons are just this is just handwriting and that's it. That's all you have to do for that day. And at the that's reading basketball. That's really cute. At the very end of Foundations A, and this is, I thought this was pretty neat. Let me find it. You have the readers. Now the readers are in the workbook. They are perforated so they can be torn out. But what they want the kids to do is to actually put together their own reader. So we have, reader 1 is called Pig, and we have the words on the pages, but the child will have to cut out the pictures and read the word and match the picture to the word so that they can put their book together. Now, I know that in the future, these readers are going to be separate from the workbook, and I'll show you how they've done level B, but that's, right now, that's how level A is set up, so that they read the word or the phrase that says wet pup in a tub. So they would find the puppy in a tub, cut it out, and paste it there. So they're kind of making their own little book. So that is Foundations Level A. Now I'm going to show you some of the stuff that you're going to need to go with Foundations Level A. So the first thing are the Phonogram game cards. These are the blue, they're called blue book face. So I'll open them and show you. These will go along with the games that you play, and so this says, this has a number 2, it says go back 2 spaces, and let's see, here's a phonogram there, here's another phonogram. So these are to be used with the games in the Foundations level A and B, I believe. Here are the Phonogram game cards. These are the red manuscript. Those were the blue book face. These are red manuscript. And so, woo, you can see how those are written. Like this one, this little, it says rotten egg. It's an egg running away. It's kind of cute. But those are those cards. So all of this comes with the kit. They're set for A and B. Then you have the Rhythm of Handwriting. These are the manuscript cards. You can get them in cursive. These are the tactile cards. So that means that, can you hear that? It's like sandpaper. So they can feel, that's why they're called tactile, they can feel the actual stroke or the letter that you're going to be using. So they go through, in the beginning of the level, the very first, they go through all of the different types of strokes before you actually get into writing the letter. Now, I know my son, at this point, knows all of his letters and how to write them, but his handwriting's kind of not the best. And so I figured this would be a good way to kind of go back over and review it, but for him not to know we're reviewing it. That's the thing. If my son thinks he's having to do something that he doesn't want to do, he will just shut down. So kind of got to trick him into it. These are the Phonogram game tiles. So for some of the games in the workbooks, you will use these tiles. So they're kind of like, they remind me a lot of the All About Reading tiles. You just got the different phonograms. And so they're connected, but they're perforated, so you can tear them apart. So there's that. Then these, I really, really like these. These are the basic Phonogram flashcards, and I know we're going to use these a lot. My son loves flashcards, so that's a nice thing. But these will show the phonogram, so this is A. On the back, it shows the sounds that the phonogram makes. So we know that A says ah, this one is A says ah, A says ah, sorry. A says A says ah, A says ah, and then we also have not just the sounds that letter makes, but we have words in which that phonogram is used. And so mat, ah, table, A, father, ah. So you're not just saying, well, A says ah. You can say A says ah like mat. You know, so they can, it helps them to understand. It takes it a little bit deeper. And they have, for every single phonogram, it's the same way. Here is or ear. I mean, it's the word ear, but the phonogram is So it's search and it says the of search. Another thing about this curriculum, I know a lot of curriculums, a lot of language art curriculums, when you get to certain rules of words, like, well, why does C say K, but also says S, and when we have a K that says K, you know, why do we have a K? Why do we need K when we have a C that also says K? And a lot of times as parents, we just say, well, that's how it is. The English language is kind of crazy. Well, actually, this material tells us the reasoning behind almost 99% of the rules of the English language. And so you don't have to say, I don't know, that's just the way it is. You can say, this is the reasoning behind that. And that's where these materials come in. We have the Phonogram and Spelling Rule Quick Reference Guide. So it's got rules about silent final E, one vowel plus one consonant, single vowel Y. Sorry about that. My husband decided to call me on my phone to figure out where I was. I'm hiding, trying to do a video. I don't want anyone to know where I am because then they'll come and bother me. I always forget to put my phone on airplane mode. I need to remember to do that. Anyway, so this is the chart. It's huge. It has all of the phonograms, the advanced phonograms, the rules behind them. I mean, it's just, there's a plethora of information. It's going to take me a while to go through all of these, which is another reason why I buy my stuff ahead of time so I can go through it and become more familiar with it so that when I'm teaching it, I know what I'm talking about and not just as clueless as my kid. Here is the rhythm of handwriting. This is the manuscript chart. So it shows straight letters, and they call them drop swoop letters. You've got all these, like the different strokes. So kick, roll, slant, slash, straight, swing. There's the down letters, the slant letters, kick letters, cross letters, straight letters, drop swoop letters, down letters. See on the back, we have roll letters, slash letters, kick letters, and cross letters. And then there's steps to teaching handwriting. So, I mean, all of these things seem like just kind of like an additional resource, but this is going to come in very handy, especially, like I said, this sounds really funny and kind of sad, but I feel like my poor son is the guinea pig of me doing this homeschooling thing, because he is the one that has to suffer through all of my mistakes and my trials and errors when it comes to curriculum. Like I said, my second child, my daughter Carmen, will be starting K-5 kindergarten this fall, and my last child, my son Joel, will be starting preschool. We're gonna do like probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday with him. He likes to sit in when we do our group work, our curriculums such as science and history and Bible, which is fine, but he'll have his own kind of preschool stuff, and I'll go over all that in a different video, what we're doing with him. But I like that they don't just give you the teacher workbook and the teacher and the student workbook, which would be good. I mean, I could still teach with that, but this just goes even deeper into the meaning of things in the English language, stuff that I didn't even learn in school. And so I'm really excited to be able to go through this. She also has a book called The Logic of English. It's a book she wrote, and I plan on buying that and reading it before the fall so that I have a deeper meaning or deeper understanding of the logic of English and everything behind that. This is the Logic of English whiteboard. You can pick up whiteboards at the Dollar Tree. A lot of them are lined like this. I like that this one has the big area. This will come in handy, especially with my daughter. My son's starting to learn to write a little bit smaller, but this will come in really handy. They love writing with dry erase markers. They think it's like a treat, so this will be especially helpful with that. So that's something. It comes with the set, but if you were going to buy the curriculum piecemeal, maybe you were just going to buy like one level, you wouldn't necessarily have to buy that. And then this is a little quick reference guide for spelling analysis. This is for let's see if you can see it. This is for one syllable words, and this is for multi-syllable words. So it's just, it's more helpful tips for the parent or the teacher so that they're not just left like without the answers. That, you know, kids ask all kinds of crazy questions, you know, things that you wouldn't even expect them to ask, they're going to ask. So it's nice to have an answer. We're not going to have all the answers, but it's nice to have answers some of the time. Another thing that they send, which is an additional cost, but I will definitely be looking into it, there's this little flyer. It talks about they have apps. So there is a doodling app, Doodling Dragons app. Let's see, it says, I'll read this because I don't know if you can. It says, whimsical rhyme written by Denise Edie, read aloud by Jim Weiss. All the sounds of A to Z, including multiple sounds of C, G, S, X, and vowels. Phonemic awareness games. It's available on iOS, Apple, and Kindle devices. It's $4.99 on iTunes and Kindle. So that's one of their apps. The other one is the Phonics with Phonograms app. You can track your individual progress. You can use multiple users. Master the 74 phonograms, 10 guide levels. iPad, it's for use on iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch, $2.99 on iTunes. So I'm going to look into those, and I'll let you know, obviously, when we come back in the fall or the winter, halfway through the year, and kind of go over the curriculum itself. I'm trying to stop getting off topic and to make this as short as possible. Okay, so last thing for level A is the Doodling Dragons, an ABC book of sounds. This is by Denise Edie, illustrated by Ingrid Hess. And this is just the cutest thing ever. This book is not, it's not to be read like a picture book. You're going to look at each alphabet sound per lesson, or whatever the lesson has intended. You may not even use this in all of the lessons. It's just however it's set about in the lesson plan itself. But so this is what the book looks like. It talks about, it has tips for enjoying Doodling Dragons. Now obviously you can read this with your child, you know, as a picture book, but it's also set up to be used as a resource material during your lesson. So for instance, here's A, ah. Apples and ants, so you got the ah. Snakes ate grapes, you have A. Wash the walls, and you have ah. So each letter will show the sounds that it makes, and they will have phrases with pictures to highlight the sounds. Same with B, buh. Barking beagles, buttered bread, blowing bubbles, baby's bed. And they rhyme, so that's cute. But I mean, I think it's just the cutest thing ever. My kids are going to love these. So that's what the Doodling Dragons looks like. Goes all the way to Z. So a lot of fun. And then at the back, it says other products by Logic of English. So it shows the other products that they have, which if you buy the set, you're going to have those products anyway. On to lesson B, or level B. This will be a little bit quicker than level A because you've seen the extras. Okay, so foundations level B. So we ended with level A foundations on lesson 40. So this one, foundations B, picks up at 41, lesson 41. Once again, we have the scope and sequence. We have each lesson. Each lesson encompasses phonemic awareness, phonogram spelling rules, handwriting, and spelling. So you have, starts on lesson 41 and it ends at lesson 80. So 39 lessons and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 review lessons. So we end up with 47, excuse me, I had some mosquito bites itching me. We have 39 lessons, 8 review lessons, which means we have 47 lessons altogether. Once again, talks about the supplies needed, cursive or manuscript, reviewing the lesson, speech tips, spelling analysis, and terms. Here we have a list of the, let me see if I can get that, high frequency words, and a list of phonograms. I got all this stuff in the way. I'm trying to kind of get closer so you guys can see this a little bit better. Like I said, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on this stuff before I actually purchased it, so I'm very thankful to those people who have made the videos before me so that I could see what it looked like before I actually bought it. And here we are with the materials needed. So the lessons laid out, the materials needed, the optional materials. You have the Common Core standards and what each standard is. And then just broken down into the standards themselves that are used in the lesson. Here you have a before you begin. Talks about for students new to foundations. Because before starting level B, they need to be able to do certain things to be able to continue with this. Like I said, on their website, they have like a little test that you can take that will show you where your child should be. So this is before you begin. Over here we've got short vowels, long vowels, more teacher tips, and then we get into lesson 41. Just a minute, baby. I'll be right down, okay? Okay, thank you, honey. He came up to tell me dinner's done. Yeah, my husband's making dinner, so I'm very thankful for that. So anyway, here's getting into lesson 1. You have the phonemic awareness part of the lesson, down to the handwriting, multiple tips for the teacher, multi-sensory fun. It still shows you what materials you're going to need and the optional materials. So we're still on handwriting. Here we have a new phonogram. Shh. So they work on that phonogram. There's phonogram practice where you'll be using the workbook and then getting into spelling. So here's your spelling list. These are the words: fish, ship, flash, spot, and drum. And then some tips and rules for the child with spelling. Then we have reading practice, and then into lesson 42. And so all of the lessons are the exact same way laid out, same as level A, just a little more in depth. So now we're not just doing single phonogram sounds, we're doing the multi-letter phonogram sounds and the blends, I guess you would call them. We're doing blends. And so once you get all the way to the end here, so this is review H, and then that's the end. And then once again, you have your index. And once you finish this, then if you like it, you can move on to C and then level D. So I didn't buy those yet. I thought about buying all of them together, but I wanted to really see how we did with this before I spent another $200 on the other levels. So that's the Foundations level B for the teacher, the workbook, and this is the student workbook, and it's very much set up like the level A. Here is a desk chart for them, which I'll probably laminate. Here, handwriting practice. We've got some tic-tac-toe games. Like I said, the games are very similar to the others. We're just beefing up their phonogram practice. And so it's just very colorful. I mean, they could have done it in black and white and saved money themselves, but I love all the colors, and my kids respond a lot better to things that are colorful like this. If they're going to have to sit down and do something that they may not want to do, they respond better when it's colorful and fun. So I like that there are games that they're learning that they don't really realize they're learning. So that is the manuscript student workbook for level B. Now the readers, I told you, the readers in A you have to put together yourself with your student. The readers in B are already separated. So there's 8 readers, and they're very thin, and they're very basic, but each reader, when you use it in correspondence with the lesson that is selected, it goes over, it highlights the phonograms that you are using. So for instance, this one, it goes over sh and th, and it talks about that, and it talks about the spelling rules. And so these are specifically created for the curriculum themselves. It's not just a reader just to get them to read. It's very specific to the lesson. Now, these are not the only readers my child will be reading through the year. Obviously, there's only 8, but we will obviously use these in correlation with the curriculum for the lesson that it's planned for, while adding in additional readers. And so these are just, I mean, they're short and to the point, but it gives them a little practice over those sounds. And these are things too, even once you've used them in the lesson, you can go back and read them again and have them read them. And so they're just short and colorful, and you can see as you move along through the readers, the sentences get longer, the words get a little bit bigger. Some of them have more than one sentence. I like that they use not only cartoon pictures, but real pictures also. My kids love a lot of nonfiction books, so seeing kids and pictures of real things, they enjoy that a lot. Whoop, sorry about that. So those are the readers. Those are Foundation B. These used to also be in the student workbook, but they have put them separate, which is kind of nice. And the last thing, the very last thing, this is one of the newer additions to the level, the Foundations curriculum, is Whistling Whales. This is beyond the sounds of ABC. So we had Doodling Dragons, which were the sounds of ABC. So this is beyond the sounds of ABC. And this will also be used in correlation with the lessons. It talks about tips for enjoying whistling whales. And so we're going over the blends now instead of just the individual letters. So th and th. Think about this. So there's 2. We know that TH makes 2 different sounds, and so they show that in that sentence with the little picture. Sheepish sharks washing ships. And it just goes through all of it. And the pictures are super cute. It's a nice hardback book. The pages are made, the paper is really nice. It's a glossy, thick paper. And so that is the level A and B set of Logic of English Foundations. And I'm really, really excited to start this. My kids have already been looking through the books. They're like, what's that? When are we starting school? I'm like, hold your horses, kids. I got a lot of planning to do. But they love it. They're really excited about it. And so when they're excited, I'm excited, because that means my job is just a little bit easier. So that's it. That's all the stuff. This is all, like I said, this is pretty much all we are using for English next year. Like I said, I already said we'll add in some additional readers here and there just to give them continued practice. But I'm trying to be more simplistic this year about our curriculum without overwhelming them. And so this is what we're going to do. And I will come back in the winter, halfway through the year, and let you know how it's going, what's working, what may not be working, you know, that kind of thing. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comment box below and I will answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.